The cold vacuum of space held many secrets, but Captain Vextal had never expected to find one floating dead in the outer edges of the Kepler system. His exploration ship, the Starwind, had been mapping this sector for 3 months when the sensors picked up something unusual. "Captain, we have a derelict vessel ahead," announced his science officer, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. "It appears to be of human origin." Vextal's 4 eyes focused on the main screen. The ship hanging in space before them looked ancient by galactic standards. Its hull was scarred with burn marks and micrometeor impacts. The design was crude, angular, and completely unlike the smooth curves of modern starships. It looked more like a weapon than a proper vessel. "How old?" Vextal asked, his tentacles tapping against his command chair. "Preliminary scans suggest at least 200 years, sir. Maybe more." Jake Morrison looked up from his station at the back of the bridge. As the only human aboard the Starwind, he often felt out of place among the tall, graceful Zephyrians. But something about this discovery made his heart race. He stood up and walked closer to the main screen, studying the battered hull. "Sir, if I may," Jake said, his voice carrying a mix of excitement and respect. "That's not just any human ship. That's a military destroyer from Earth's early expansion period." Captain Vextal turned all 4 of his eyes toward Jake. The human was young by galactic standards, barely 30 years old, but he had proven himself valuable as a liaison officer. His knowledge of human history and culture had helped the crew understand several archaeological finds during their mission. "You recognize this vessel?" Vextal asked. Jake nodded, pointing at the faded markings on the hull. "USS Liberty Bell. She's a Defender-class destroyer from the 2080s. My grandfather served on ships like this during the first wave of human expansion." The Zephyrian crew exchanged glances. To them, human technology from that era was laughably primitive. No energy, shields, no plasma weapons, no gravity manipulation systems, just crude metal hulls and chemical rockets. They were surprised such ancient ships had managed to leave their home system at all. "Is it worth investigating?" Vextal asked. "Our mission is to map stellar phenomena, not collect museum pieces." Jake felt a strange pull toward the dead ship. Something in his family's military background made him want to know what had happened to the Liberty Bell and her crew. "Sir, these ships were sent out during humanity's most dangerous period. Earth was alone back then. No allies, no Galactic Council membership. If this ship made it this far from home, there might be valuable historical data aboard." Vextal considered this. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their love of knowledge and history. The chance to learn more about humanity's early space efforts was tempting. "Very well. We will dock and conduct a brief survey, but I want full environmental suits and no unnecessary risks." An hour later, Jake found himself floating through the airlock of the Liberty Bell. The ship's artificial gravity had failed long ago, leaving everything in 0G. His helmet lights cut through the darkness of the corridor, revealing walls lined with what looked like weapon storage lockers and emergency stations. "The air is breathable but stale," reported Lisa Blake, the team's human technician who had volunteered for the boarding party. "Life support systems are offline, but the hull is intact." They made their way through the ship's narrow corridors. Everything was built for function over comfort. The walls were thick metal plates held together by massive bolts. Jake recognized the design philosophy. These ships were built to take damage and keep fighting. "Look at this," Lisa called from what appeared to be the ship's armory. "They have enough weapons to arm a small army. Projectile rifles, explosive charges, even what looks like nuclear warheads." Jake examined the weapons with growing amazement. These crews expected to fight boarding actions, hand-to-hand combat in space. No one builds ships like this anymore. They reached the bridge where Jake's lights illuminated a scene frozen in time. The command stations were dark, but the thick windows showed a view of stars that had remained unchanged for centuries. In the center of the bridge sat the captain's chair, with a small plaque reading Captain Danny Rodriguez. "The computer core might still have power," Lisa said, checking her scanner. "These old ships had independent backup systems for everything. If we can restart the main computer, we might learn what happened here." Jake found the manual power switches, actual physical switches instead of the touch controls used on modern ships. As he flipped them one by one, lights began to flicker throughout the bridge. Ancient cooling systems hummed to life, and slowly, the main computer terminal began to glow. "Remarkable," whispered one of the Zephyrian team members. "This technology is so primitive, yet so robust." The main screen flickered and displayed a simple text interface. Jake's hands moved across the old-style keyboard, typing commands he remembered from historical training. Slowly, the ship's logs began to appear. "Liberty Bell, final log entry," Jake read aloud. "Captain Danny Rodriguez recording. We've taken heavy damage fighting unknown hostiles near the Galactic Rim. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 6. Half the crew is dead. We've managed to destroy 3 enemy vessels, but more are coming." Jake scrolled through more entries. "They fought running battles for weeks. Always outnumbered, always outgunned, but they kept fighting. Listen to this. Engaged 6 enemy cruisers today. Took out 2 with nuclear torpedoes before they knew what hit them. These aliens fight clean. We don't. Rodriguez out." The Zephyrian team members looked uncomfortable. Their species had evolved past such violent approaches to conflict. The idea of using nuclear weapons in space combat seemed barbaric to them. "Sir," Lisa called from another station, "I'm reading some kind of AI core. It's in hibernation mode, but it might still be functional." Jake's blood ran cold. AI cores on these old ships weren't just computers. They were often loaded with the personality and memories of the ship's captain, designed to continue fighting even if the crew died. "Can you wake it up?" Jake asked. Before Lisa could answer, the main screen flickered again. New text appeared. "Human voices detected. Initiating revival protocol." The bridge lights grew brighter, and hidden speakers crackled to life. When the voice came through, it carried the accent and attitude of old Earth military. "Well, I'll be damned. Humans. About time you showed up. This is Captain Danny Rodriguez, USS Liberty Bell. Who's in charge here?" Jake stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, sir. We're here to help." "Help?" The AI laughed, a sound both human and mechanical. "Son, if you really want to help, you better tell me something. Are those hostile aliens still out there causing trouble?" Before Jake could answer, the Starwind's emergency beacon began to sound through their comm systems. Captain Vextal's voice crackled through. "All teams return immediately. Long-range sensors are detecting a large fleet approaching the system. Unknown configuration, but they're not responding to peaceful contact attempts." Jake looked at the glowing screen where Captain Rodriguez's AI waited for an answer. "Yes, sir. I think they are." "Outstanding," the AI responded, and Jake could hear the grim satisfaction in the artificial voice. "Then wake up my systems, son. The Liberty Bell has been sleeping long enough." Jake's hands moved across the ancient control panels as Captain Rodriguez's AI guided him through the startup sequence. The Liberty Bell groaned and shuddered as systems that had slept for 2 centuries began to wake up. Emergency lights flickered on throughout the ship, casting red shadows in the corridors. "Easy there, son," Rodriguez's voice echoed through the speakers. "She's an old girl, but she's got fight left in her. Start with the reactor. Big red switch on your left." Jake found the switch and pulled it down. Deep in the ship's belly, the nuclear reactor began its startup cycle. The deck plates vibrated under their feet as power flowed through ancient circuits. Modern ships used clean fusion reactors that ran silent. This old beast announced its awakening to anyone within 1,000 kilometers. "Sir?" Lisa called from the weapons station. "I'm reading some unusual systems here. Nuclear missiles, kinetic projectile cannons, something called a point defense grid." Rodriguez chuckled. "Ah, you found my teeth. Those kinetic cannons fire solid uranium slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The missiles pack 50 megaton warheads, and that point defense grid can track and destroy anything smaller than a fighter craft." The Zephyrian team members looked horrified. Their own ships carried plasma weapons designed to disable enemy vessels, allowing for peaceful surrender. The idea of using weapons meant only to destroy seemed alien to them. "Captain Rodriguez," Jake said carefully, "the galaxy has changed since your time. Most conflicts are resolved through negotiation now. Weapons like these might be considered excessive." "Excessive?" The AI's laugh was harsh. "Son, let me tell you something about excessive. When Earth sent us out here, we were alone in a hostile galaxy. Every alien species we met either wanted to enslave us or eat us. We learned real quick that the only way to survive was to hit harder and faster than anyone expected. Captain Vextal's voice crackled through their comm units. Away team status report. The approaching fleet has reached the outer system. They're demanding immediate surrender of all vessels and personnel. Jake keyed his communicator. Sir, we've managed to restart the derelict. Captain Rodriguez here has experience fighting unknown hostiles. Captain Rodriguez is dead, Lieutenant Commander. Vextal replied with confusion. It's complicated, sir, but he wants to help. Back on the Starwind's bridge, Vextal stared at the tactical display. 12 large vessels were approaching in perfect formation. Their design was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Angular, aggressive, covered in weapon emplacements. They moved with the confidence of a species that expected quick victory. This is War Prince Thakmor of the Hegemony, came the transmission. You have entered space claimed by our empire. Surrender your vessels immediately or face destruction. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Vextal felt his heart sink. The Starwind was a science vessel, armed only with basic defensive systems. Against 12 warships they had no chance, but evacuation would take hours, and there were civilian colonies throughout the system. Sir, his tactical officer reported, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human derelict. It appears to be powering up weapon systems. On the Liberty Bell, Jake watched in amazement as the ship's combat systems came online. Holographic displays showed the approaching hegemony fleet, with targeting solutions already being calculated. Captain Rodriguez, those are 12 heavy cruisers. This ship is 2 centuries old. We should evacuate. Like hell, Rodriguez snorted. You see those ugly bastards out there? They're bullies. I've fought their type before. They expect easy victories against soft targets. They've never faced anyone who shoots back. Lisa checked her readings. Sir, I'm showing weapons that could level a continent. Isn't this overkill for a space battle? Honey, Rodriguez said gently. There's no such thing as overkill. There's only open fire and reload faster. Now I need a human crew to operate my systems properly. This old girl was built for human reflexes and human thinking. Jake made a decision that would change galactic history. Captain Vextal, I'm requesting permission to remain aboard the Liberty Bell with a volunteer crew. We might be able to buy you time to evacuate the system. The silence on the comm channel lasted nearly a minute. Finally, Vextal responded. Jake, that's suicide. You have no support, no backup systems. Sir, this ship was designed to fight alone. That's what she does. Captain Lisa Blake was the first to volunteer. As the Starwind's tactical officer, she understood weapons and combat maneuvers. Pete Collins, the chief engineer, wanted to see how the ancient systems worked. Maria Santos, the communications specialist, was curious about the ship's AI. Within an hour, the small human crew had taken positions throughout the Liberty Bell. The Zephyrians evacuated to their own ship, leaving the humans alone with their ghostly captain. All right, people, Rodriguez's voice filled the bridge. Time for a history lesson. These hegemony ships are bigger than us, faster than us, and probably have better shields. But they have one fatal weakness. And what's that, sir? Jake asked as he settled into the captain's chair. They've never fought humans before. They don't know that we cheat. The hour deadline passed. War Prince Thakmor was growing impatient. The small science vessel had withdrawn to the edge of the system, but the human derelict remained motionless. Its antiquated design offended his military sensibilities. How dare such a primitive craft remain in his presence? Destroy that relic, he ordered. Use minimum force. I don't want to waste ammunition on scrap metal. The lead hegemony cruiser moved forward, its plasma batteries charging for a simple execution shot. The range closed to optimal firing distance. Weapon locks engaged. On the Liberty Bell, alarms sounded as the enemy ship approached. They're targeting us, Lisa reported from the weapons station. Good, Rodriguez replied. Let them get close. Humans always did their best work up close and personal. Incoming plasma discharge, Pete called from engineering. The hegemony cruiser fired, sending a stream of superheated gas toward the Liberty Bell. The ancient ship's primitive shields flared and held, though barely. Now that, Rodriguez said with grim satisfaction, was a mistake. They just told me everything I need to know about their weapons, their range, and their tactics. Jake, bring us about. It's time to show these bastards how Earth fought its wars. Jake's hands flew over the controls, bringing the Liberty Bell around in a tight turn that would have been impossible for a larger modern vessel. The ship's structure groaned but held together. Lisa, target their forward weapon clusters with kinetic rounds. Maria, jam their communications. Pete, give me everything the reactor has. Sir, Lisa said, her finger hovering over the firing control. Are you sure about this? Rodriguez's laugh was cold as space itself. Honey, I've been waiting 200 years for this fight. Light them up. The Liberty Bell's kinetic cannons fired, sending uranium slugs screaming across space at tremendous velocity. The Hegemony cruiser's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and laser fire, proved useless against solid projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. The slugs punched through the alien hull like paper, tearing massive holes in the ship's superstructure. Atmosphere vented in glittering clouds as the cruiser's crew fought to contain the damage. Direct hit, Lisa reported with amazement. Their shields didn't even slow us down. Course they didn't, Rodriguez said. Energy shields work fine against energy weapons. But Sir Isaac Newton is still the deadliest son of a bitch in space. When a chunk of uranium hits you at .2 light speed, all the fancy technology in the galaxy won't save you. The damaged Hegemony cruiser tried to return fire, but its weapons were offline. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as the uranium slugs continued their destructive path through the ship's interior. War Prince Thakmor watched in shock as his lead cruiser died. The primitive human vessel had destroyed a state-of-the-art warship in less than a minute. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was terrifying. All ship, he transmitted, his voice shaking with rage. Destroy that human ship. Use everything we have. On the Liberty Bell, Jake watched 11 remaining cruisers turn toward them with weapons charging. Sir, he said to the AI, we just made them very angry. Good, Rodriguez replied. Angry enemies make mistakes. And son, it's about to get a whole lot more interesting. Those weren't my only weapons. As if summoned by his words, Jake's tactical display lit up with new contacts. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace throughout the system. Old ships. Human ships. Ships that should have been dead for centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodriguez announced over the comm system, I'd like you to meet the rest of the pack. Jake stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 7 more human ships had appeared throughout the system, their ancient hulls scarred but intact. Each vessel was different. Some were sleek cruisers, others were bulky cargo ships converted for war. All of them radiated the same deadly purpose as the Liberty Bell. Rodriguez, you beautiful bastard, came a voice over the comm system. About time you woke up. Ben Hayes, USS Yorktown, Rodriguez identified for his crew. Good to hear your voice, old friend. Another voice crackled through the speakers.
Kate Sullivan here, commanding the Minuteman.
Sorry we're late to the party. We were having a lovely nap. Jake counted 8 human ships total, including the Liberty Bell. Against 11 Hegemony cruisers, they were still badly outnumbered. But something had changed in the atmosphere on the bridge. The AI captains were talking like old friends meeting for a reunion. Sir, Jake asked, how are they all here? How did they know to come? Quantum entanglement communicators, Rodriguez explained. Every ship in the first expansion fleet was linked. When I woke up and started broadcasting on the old military frequencies, I sent out a general call. Anyone still alive would hear it. Maria Santos looked up from her communications station. I'm picking up more transmissions. These AIs have been talking to each other this whole time, sharing data, coordinating. The lead Hegemony cruiser, War Prince Thakmor's flagship, moved toward the growing human formation. Its weapons were charged and ready. The other 10 cruisers spread out in a classic attack pattern, designed to overwhelm a single target with coordinated fire. Human vessels, Thakmor transmitted. You are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. The response came from Admiral Frank Turner aboard the battlecruiser Constitution. His voice was deep and carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in Earth's darkest wars. Hegemony ships, this is Admiral Turner. We've got a counteroffer. You can turn around and leave the system, or we can demonstrate why humans were never conquered during the expansion wars. Thakmor's laugh was harsh. 8 ancient ships against 11 modern cruisers? Your mathematics are poor, human. Actually, Turner replied calmly, our mathematics are just fine. You see, when Earth sent us out here, we knew we'd be outnumbered in every fight, so we learned to make sure that didn't matter. The human ships began to move, but not in any formation the Hegemony recognized. Instead of grouping together for mutual support, they spread out across the system. Each vessel moved independently, using asteroid fields and gas clouds for cover. What are they doing? Thakmor demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. Their formation makes no sense. They're giving up all advantages of coordinated defense. On the Liberty Bell, Jake was learning how different human military doctrine was from galactic norms. The other species fought battles like chess games, careful positioning, coordinated movements, elegant tactics. Humans fought like wolves. Pack hunting, Rodriguez explained as they accelerated toward an asteroid field. Separate your enemy, isolate them, then take them down one by one. Lisa, arm the nuclear missiles. We're going hunting. The first hegemony cruiser to break formation was the Dread Spear, pursuing what looked like a damaged human freighter called the Ranger. Captain Amy Carter was leading them deeper into the asteroid field, her ship appearing to limp from battle damage. She's running scared, the hegemony commander reported. Pursuing to finish her off. It was a trap, of course. When the Dread Spear entered the asteroid field, it found itself surrounded. The Ranger wasn't damaged. Carter had been faking the engine problems. Worse, 2 other human ships were hidden among the asteroids, waiting. Surprise, Carter transmitted as the Ranger spun around and fired a spread of nuclear missiles at point-blank range. The hegemony cruiser's shields flared as the atomic fire washed over them. The energy barriers held, but barely. Before they could recover, the hidden human ships opened fire with kinetic weapons, their uranium slugs punching through the weakened shields like paper. The Dread Spear died in a ball of nuclear fire, its reactor breached by a kinetic round that had traveled the length of the ship. First blood to us, Turner announced over the command channel. Textbook pack tactics. Who's next? War Prince Thakmor was beginning to understand that he was not fighting a conventional battle. These humans didn't care about honor or proper military protocol. They used deception, ambush tactics, and weapons that civilized species had banned as too destructive. All ships, maintain formation, he ordered. Do not pursue individual targets. But the human ships were already moving again. The USS Defiant, commanded by AI Captain Rick Mason, had positioned itself near a gas giant. When 2 hegemony cruisers moved to engage it, Mason did something that shocked everyone. He flew straight at the gas giant. He's going to crash, one of the hegemony captains reported. The gravitational field will tear his ship apart. Instead, Mason used the planet's gravity to slingshot around it, building up tremendous velocity. The Defiant came screaming out of the maneuver, moving at nearly 10% of light speed, far faster than any ship should be able to travel in normal space. The kinetic energy alone turned the old human ship into a relativistic weapon. When it struck the first hegemony cruiser, the impact released energy equivalent to several nuclear weapons. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but Mason had taken one of the enemy with him. Mason, you crazy bastard, Rodriguez said quietly. Always did like the direct approach. Jake was starting to understand the pattern. These AI captains were willing to sacrifice themselves to win. They had been alone in space for 2 centuries, with nothing but their mission and their memories of Earth. Death held no terror for them, failing their duty did. The battle continued to rage throughout the system. Human ships appeared and disappeared among asteroids and moons, striking at isolated hegemony vessels and then vanishing before the enemy could respond. Each attack was perfectly coordinated, as if the human captains could read each other's minds. Captain Vextal, watching from the edge of the system, was amazed by what he saw. They fight like a single organism, he told his crew. Each ship knows exactly what the others will do. The USS Yorktown, Ben Hayes commanding, had lured 3 hegemony cruisers into pursuit. When they followed him into the shadow of a moon, they found themselves facing a minefield that Hayes had somehow deployed in minutes. Nuclear mines, Hayes announced cheerfully as the first explosions lit up space. Another human innovation. We always did believe in being prepared. 2 of the 3 cruisers were destroyed immediately. The third, badly damaged, tried to retreat only to find the Liberty Bell waiting for it. Rodriguez here, the familiar voice came over the comm. Thanks for the setup, Ben. We'll take it from here. The damaged hegemony ship tried to surrender, but Jake was learning that these old human ships didn't take prisoners. The Liberty Bell's weapons spoke once, and another enemy vessel became expanding plasma and debris. War Prince Thakmor found himself commanding only 5 ships out of his original 12. The humans still had 6 vessels operational, and they showed no signs of slowing down. Worse, they were learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics in real time. Sir, his tactical officer reported, I'm detecting something unusual. The human ships seem to be sharing targeting data instantly. Their coordination is unlike anything we've encountered. Thakmor was beginning to feel something he had never experienced before. Fear. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds through superior technology and overwhelming force. But these ancient human ships fought with a savage intelligence that made mockery of his advantages. All remaining ships, he ordered, converge on my position. We attack as one unit. The 5 surviving hegemony cruisers formed up around their flagship, weapons charged and ready. It should have been the end for the outnumbered human vessels. Instead, Jake heard Admiral Turner's voice over the comm, calm and confident. All right, people. They want to make it easy for us. Time for the Alpha Strike. All ships target the flagship. Let's show them why humans ruled the expansion frontier. 6 human ships, battered but unbroken, turned toward the hegemony formation. Their weapons were charging, their AIs calculating firing solutions with mechanical precision. Jake realized he was about to witness something that would be talked about for generations. The final assault of Earth's Ghost Fleet was about to begin. The 6 remaining human ships spread out in a formation that looked chaotic to anyone who didn't understand pack hunting. Each vessel approached from a different angle, their ancient engines pushing them to velocities that should have torn their hulls apart. War Prince Thakmor watched them come with growing dread. His 5 cruisers had more firepower, better shields, and superior armor. By every tactical analysis, the humans should lose this engagement. But something about their approach made his blood run cold. All ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel, he ordered. The human ship designated Liberty Bell was closest, and destroying their apparent leader might break their coordination. The hegemony ships opened fire as one, sending streams of plasma toward the approaching human destroyer. Jake felt the Liberty Bell shudder as the energy weapons struck their primitive shields. But Rodriguez had taught him something about human engineering. Redundancy. Son, the AI explained as backup systems automatically engaged. When you might be fighting alone for months, you build everything twice. Power couplings, shield generators, life support. If one system fails, 3 others take its place. The plasma barrage that should have destroyed the Liberty Bell instead just made her angry. Her shields held, her hull remained intact, and her weapons stayed online. Lisa, return fire, Jake ordered. All weapons maximum spread. The Liberty Bell's response was devastating. Kinetic cannons sent uranium slugs screaming across space while nuclear missiles arced toward the enemy formation. The hegemony ship's energy shields stopped the plasma warheads from detonating, but the kinetic rounds punched right through their defenses. Impossible, Thakmor whispered as his flagship's hull rang like a bell from impacts. How can such primitive weapons penetrate our shields? His answer came from an unexpected source. On the bridge of the USS Constitution, Admiral Turner was explaining human military philosophy to his own crew of awakened volunteers. Energy shields work great against energy weapons, Turner said calmly as his ship's massive guns tracked toward the enemy formation. But they were never designed to stop a chunk of metal moving at 20% of light speed. Basic physics, people. Force equals mass times acceleration. The Constitution opened fire with her main batteries, weapons that had been designed to crack open fortified asteroids during humanity's mining operations. The heavy kinetic rounds struck the hegemony formation like the hammer of an angry god. One cruiser simply disintegrated, its hull unable to withstand the kinetic energy transfer. A second ship spun out of control, its superstructure cracked from bow to stern. The remaining vessels tried to maintain formation, but their coordinated fire was disrupted. That was when the rest of the human pack struck. Captain Kate Sullivan brought the Minuteman in from below, her converted cargo ship bristling with improvised weapons. Mining charges designed to break up asteroids made excellent anti-ship missiles when properly modified. Delivery for the hegemony, Sullivan announced cheerfully as she launched a full spread, signed, sealed, and about to be delivered with extreme prejudice. The mining charges weren't fast like military missiles, but they were cheap and numerous. The hegemony point defense systems couldn't track them all. When they detonated against enemy hulls, they did so with the focused fury of shaped charges designed to crack solid rock. Another hegemony cruiser died, its reactor breached by a mining charge that had punched through 6 decks before exploding. Ben Hayes in the Yorktown was demonstrating why human ships carried such massive weapon loads. His cruiser fired continuously, Salvo after salvo of kinetic rounds and nuclear missiles, the sustained barrage overwhelmed the remaining hegemony ship's defensive systems. "You know what your problem is?" Hayes transmitted to the enemy fleet as his weapon spoke again. "You fight like gentlemen. We fight like humans." War Prince Thakmor's flagship was taking heavy damage, its hull marked by kinetic impacts and plasma burns. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to maintain systems that were never designed to take such punishment. "Sir, we've lost 2 more ships," his tactical officer reported. "The remaining vessels are requesting permission to withdraw." Thakmor's pride warred with his survival instinct. The hegemony had never retreated from battle, never shown weakness to inferior species. But these humans weren't inferior. They were something else entirely. "How?" he demanded. "How can 8 primitive ships defeat a modern battle fleet?" The answer came from Jake Morrison aboard the Liberty Bell. The young human officer had been listening to the tactical chatter, learning from the AI captains who had fought humanity's first wars among the stars. "Because you think like a civilization," Jake transmitted on an open channel. "You have rules, protocols, standards of conduct. We're not a civilization out here, we're survivors, and survivors do whatever it takes to win." As if to prove his point, Captain Amy Carter in the Ranger did something that horrified the hegemony commanders. Her ship was badly damaged, systems failing, but she was still moving. Instead of retreating to make repairs, she accelerated straight toward the nearest enemy cruiser. "Carter, what are you doing?" "Rodriguez called over the comm." "Same thing Mason did," Carter replied calmly. "These bastards want to conquer human space? They can pay the price for it." The Ranger struck the hegemony cruiser amidships, her reinforced bow punching through the enemy's hull like a spear through armor. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash, but Carter had taken another enemy with her. That left War Prince Thakmor with only 2 ships, his flagship and 1 escort cruiser. Against 4 remaining human vessels, the odds had completely reversed. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "we should surrender, perhaps negotiate terms." Thakmor looked at the tactical display where the human ships were already moving into attack position. These weren't the actions of species that took prisoners or negotiated terms. These were the movements of predators closing in for the kill. "There will be no surrender," he said with what dignity he could muster. "The hegemony does not bow to primitive species." But even as he spoke the words, Thakmor knew they were hollow. These humans weren't primitive. They were something far more dangerous. They were experienced. Admiral Turner's voice came over the comm system, calm and professional. "Hegemony ships, this is your final warning. Leave this system immediately or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply." Thakmor's hands clenched around his command controls. Everything in his military training told him to fight to the end, to die with honor rather than flee before inferior enemies. But a small voice in his head whispered that perhaps these enemies weren't inferior after all. "Sir," his escort captain transmitted privately, "my ship can't take much more damage. If we're going to withdraw, it has to be now." The War Prince looked at his tactical display one more time. 4 human ships, battered but still dangerous, waited for his decision. Their weapons were charged, their targeting systems locked onto his vessels. He could see the mathematical certainty of his own death in those targeting solutions. "All ships," he transmitted with bitter reluctance, "emergency jump to hyperspace. We are withdrawing from this system." The 2 remaining hegemony ships engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished, leaving behind only expanding clouds of debris from their fallen comrades. On the Liberty Bell, Jake slumped back in the captain's chair as the adrenaline began to fade. Around the system, 4 human ships hung in space like ancient guardians, their hulls scarred but their weapons still ready. "Well," Rodriguez said with satisfaction, "that went better than I expected, though I'm going to miss Carter and Mason. Good captains, both of them." Jake looked at the debris fields that marked where the battle had raged. "Sir, what happens now? The galaxy is going to want answers about what happened here." "Now?" Admiral Turner's voice came over the comm system. "Now we do what we've always done, son. We stand watch. The galaxy doesn't need to understand us. They just need to know we're here." As Jake watched, long-range sensors detected ships approaching from throughout the local sector. News of the battle was already spreading, carried by the fleeing hegemony survivors and civilian witnesses. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's old warships were still very much alive and very much deadly. The age of easy conquest was over. 3 weeks after the battle, The Kepler system had become the busiest place in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species arrived daily, their crews wanting to see the ancient human vessels that had destroyed a hegemony battle fleet. Jake found himself giving tours of the Liberty Bell to admirals, scientists, and diplomats who couldn't believe what they were seeing. "These weapon systems are incredibly primitive," observed Admiral Zixtar of the Centauri Defense Force, running one of his tentacles over a kinetic cannon. "No energy-focusing arrays, no plasma containment fields, just metal tubes that throw rocks. Rocks that move at 20% of light speed," Jake corrected politely. "When something hits you that fast and that hard, it doesn't matter if it's made of uranium or cheese." Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Though I wouldn't recommend cheese. Uranium has better armor penetration characteristics." The alien admiral jerked back in surprise. Most species had moved beyond artificial intelligence centuries ago, finding the concept of digital consciousness disturbing. The idea that these human ships were commanded by the uploaded minds of dead captains was deeply unsettling to many visitors. "The AI seems quite aggressive," Zixtar commented carefully. "That's because I was trained to fight and kill the enemies of humanity," Rodriguez replied cheerfully. "It's what I do. It's what we all do." Jake had learned to manage these diplomatic visits carefully. The galaxy was struggling to understand how humanity's supposedly backward technology had proven so effective. Most species assumed that advanced weapons were automatically better weapons, but the human approach was different. "We didn't build our ships to be sophisticated," Jake explained as they toured the armory. "We built them to work. Every system has backups, every backup has backups. When you're fighting alone, thousands of light years from help, reliability matters more than elegance." Captain Vextal had become something of an expert on human military history over the past weeks. His report on the battle had caused a sensation throughout the Galactic Council. Advanced species that had dismissed human technology as primitive were suddenly very interested in learning more. "The human approach to warfare is fundamentally different from our own," Vextal explained to a gathering of military leaders aboard the Starwind. "We build ships to fight other civilized species using established rules of engagement. Humans built ships to fight anything, anywhere, using any means necessary." Admiral Ben Hayes had moved the USS Yorktown to a position near the system's main space station, where he regularly held conferences with other military leaders. His ancient cruiser looked crude compared to the sleek modern vessels around it, but nobody questioned its effectiveness anymore. "You want to know our secret?" Hayes asked a group of Zephyrian naval officers. "We assumed we were going to lose every fight, so we made sure that losing would cost the enemy more than they wanted to pay." The political implications were staggering. The hegemony had been expanding unchecked for decades, conquering species after species with overwhelming technological superiority. The news that they had been defeated by ancient human ships sent shockwaves throughout their empire. War Prince Thakmor found himself facing a military tribunal on the hegemony capital world. His superiors couldn't understand how he had lost 11 modern cruisers to 8 primitive vessels. "They used nuclear weapons in space combat," he explained desperately. "Kinetic projectiles that ignored our shields. Ramming attacks that destroyed both ships. These humans don't fight according to civilized standards." "Are you saying," his superior demanded, "that primitive barbarians defeated the finest ships in the hegemony fleet?" Thakmor thought about the cold professionalism in Admiral Turner's voice, the calculated brutality of the human tactics, the way they had worked together like a single deadly organism. "No," he said quietly. "I'm saying we weren't fighting barbarians. We were fighting something much worse. We were fighting professionals." Back in the Kepler system, Jake was learning that the battle had awakened more than just the old human ships. Captain Lisa Blake had been promoted to command her own vessel, the UES Defender, a modern ship equipped with both traditional galactic weapons and new human-designed kinetic systems. "It's strange," she told Jake as they reviewed tactical reports in the Liberty Bell's briefing room. 6 months ago, human technology was considered obsolete. Now every major power wants to license our weapon designs. Rodriguez's voice chimed in from the speakers. "Funny how getting shot at changes your perspective on what's important in a weapon system." The real change, Jake realized, wasn't in technology, but in attitude. The galaxy had become comfortable with the idea that warfare was a gentleman's game, fought between civilized species according to established rules. The human ships had reminded everyone that war was ultimately about survival. and survivors didn't play by rules. Admiral Turner had established a coordination center aboard the Constitution, from which he managed the growing fleet of reactivated human vessels. Every day brought news of another ancient ship awakening, another AI captain reporting for duty. "How many of you are out there?" Jake asked during one of their regular conferences. 43 ships originally, Turner replied. "We've lost 12 over the centuries to various accidents and battles. But the rest of us are still here, still watching, still ready." The implications were staggering. 43 ancient human warships scattered throughout the galaxy, each one capable of single-handedly destroying modern battle fleets. They had been sleeping peacefully for centuries, but now they were awake and coordinating their activities. Captain Vextal had been promoted to admiral and placed in charge of integrating human tactical doctrine into council forces. It was a challenging assignment. Most galactic species found human methods disturbingly effective but ethically questionable. "They fight to win," Vextal explained to his staff, "not to demonstrate superiority, not to prove a point, not to maintain honor. They fight to eliminate threats to their survival. It's a completely different mindset." The lesson was spreading throughout the galaxy. Trade routes that had been threatened by pirates suddenly became safe as ancient human ships appeared to escort merchant vessels. Aggressive species that had been expanding into neutral space found themselves facing opponents who shot first and asked questions later. The hegemony's expansion ground to a halt as they encountered more human ships. Each battle followed the same pattern, overwhelming. Technological superiority meant nothing against opponents who were willing to ram your ship if that's what it took to win. Jake found himself appointed as humanity's first liaison to the Galactic Defense Council. It was a position that didn't exist a month ago, but the galaxy's power structure was adapting to new realities. "The question everyone wants answered," Admiral Zixtar told him during a private meeting, "is whether humanity plans to use these ships for conquest." Jake thought about the AI captains he had come to know. Rodriguez with his dry humor, Hayes with his casual competence, Turner with his quiet authority. They were warriors certainly, but they were also guardians. "No," Jake said finally. "These captains have been alone in space for 2 centuries, fighting to protect worlds they'll never see again. They're not conquerors, they're defenders, and they'll keep defending as long as there are threats to defend against." The conversation was interrupted by an alarm from the Liberty Bell's bridge. Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "Jake, you'd better get over here. Long-range sensors are picking up something big heading this way from the galactic core. Multiple fleets, unknown configuration, and they're not responding to peaceful contact attempts." Jake felt a familiar chill. The hegemony had been bad enough, but they had at least been a known quantity. This new threat was completely unknown, and anything that required multiple fleets to handle was serious indeed. "Sir?" he asked as he headed for the Liberty Bell. "Are you and the other captains ready for another fight?" Rodriguez's laugh carried the same cold amusement that had marked their first encounter. "Son, we've been ready for 200 years. Besides, word's getting out about what happened here. I'm picking up activation signals from human ships all across the galaxy. Looks like the whole pack is waking up." As Jake reached the Liberty Bell's bridge, he could see new contacts appearing on the tactical display. Ancient human ships dropping out of hyperspace from every direction, their AI captains responding to the call for help. The USS Marathon, the UES Lexington, the battleship Sovereign, the heavy cruiser Intrepid, names from humanity's military history, now commanded by digital ghosts who had never forgotten their duty. "How many ships are we talking about?" Jake asked in amazement. 31 and counting, Rodriguez replied. "Every captain who's still operational is heading this way. Whatever's coming from the galactic core, they're going to get a very warm reception." Admiral Turner's voice came over the fleet communication channel, calm and professional as always. "All ships, this is Turner. Unknown hostiles approaching from galactic core. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Formation orders will follow. For those captains who are new to the party, welcome back to the war."